Fentanyl, a drug 50 times stronger than heroin with just 2 milligrams, enough to kill. And right now, it's fueling the worst drug crisis in the history of the United States. Tonight, to examine where it's coming from, why it's so dangerous, and how police, parents, and even schools are trying to stop it. We have an eyewitness report from inside the secret labs cooking up the drug in Mexico, and meet the drug cartels making millions from fentanyl.
50 kilos would kill everyone in London and everyone in Los Angeles. It's incredible to think people even put this into their bodies.
We join the police targeting the gangs and the paramedics racing to bring people back from the brink of death. In America, the effects are stark, with addicts reduced to a zombie-like state on the streets of some of the country's biggest cities.
I've never seen anything like it. I'll meet regular people, square Joes, on their way to work, and they'll stop, hang out with me, try this drug for the first time, and then leave their life.
We meet the families broken by fentanyl, now determined to stop more young lives being lost to the drug.
She was 16 years old.
17 years old.
To a pill she was trying to use to relieve her anxiety and sleep.
But it's the drug. The drug is so addictive, and it steals lives.
So what can be done about it? We'll ask the Director of Drug Control in the White House. Good evening. Welcome to a Sky News special program investigating the lethal rise of fentanyl. 50 times more powerful than heroin, 100 times more potent than morphine. Fentanyl is a multi-million-dollar business spanning the globe and fueling an addiction epidemic in the US that has killed thousands of drug users. In parts of the US, law enforcement has lost the fight to control the deadly drug, and it's already on its way over here. Well, Sky News brings you the story from our team across the north and central of America. We'll speak to our chief correspondent, Stuart Ramsey, who's been tracing the production line of fentanyl in Mexico. Martha Kellner joins us from a neighborhood in San Francisco that is overwhelmed with drug dependency. And from Texas, Mark Stone reports on the American teenagers dying from taking the drug. But first tonight to northwest Mexico, where Sky News witnessed firsthand how one drug cartel manufactures super-strength fentanyl using chemicals smuggled from China. Our chief correspondent, Stuart Ramsey, sent us this.
From a small village on Mexico's Pacific coast, fishing boats with powerful engines speed through estuaries leading to the ocean. It's early evening, but they move before dark. On board are members of the Sinaloa drug cartel, one of the most powerful in Mexico. They're heading to a rendezvous point to pick up a shipment the cartel says has been smuggled here from China. On an islet in water too shallow for Mexico's security forces to use their vessels, a man helps load plastic jerry cans filled with chemicals known as precursors. They are the crucial ingredients that make the opioid drug fentanyl. This is the first part of a process that makes the cartel millions of dollars, but fuels an opioid epidemic that's killing thousands of drug users in the United States. They move quickly. Mexican Marines are always near, and drones are a constant threat. They head to shore. The chemicals are loaded into a car to be whisked away to a safe house. Directions are given to us to join the gang later that night. The back streets of Culiacan, the Sinaloa cartel's headquarters, are controlled by cartel gunmen. We're watched constantly as we drive to the stash house. The precursors are already here. This is one of the cartel's most senior players. He's in charge of distributing the precursors to the fentanyl-making labs. This one consignment, he told me, can make 1/2 ton of the drug. They do this every week.
Todo lo que aquí se procesa se manda para Estados Unidos o se manda para Australia, España, para Qatar, para a nivel mundial, Rusia, Inglaterra, para toda parte del mundo, Asia, para todos lados.
I mean, it's a huge business, yeah.
El fentanilo viene siendo morfina, 150 veces más potente que la morfina y 50 veces más potente que la chiva negra de flor. Es más potente por los sintéticos y los precursores que traemos nosotros de China para alterar más, que tenga más anestesia analgésico.
The fentanyl labs are spread across the state of Sinaloa, in towns, villages and the countryside. We're guided up a remote hillside. Hidden beneath trees and tarpaulin sheets is a lab where the synthetic opioid drug is made. It's highly toxic. Even breathing in the fumes here is lethal. The US Drug Enforcement Agency says pure fentanyl is so dangerous, even a microscopic dose can be lethal.
This gang estimate that they make about 50 kilos of fentanyl a week. It's incredibly dangerous and toxic stuff. To give you some perspective, 50 kilos would kill everyone in London. Pretty amazing, right? Except, in fact, 50 kilos would kill everyone in London and everyone in Los Angeles. It's incredible to think people even put this into their bodies, but it's big business and they're making a lot of money.
It's going to take a few hours to make pure fentanyl. The two gang members who create the drug leave their guns on a tree branch as they work through 3 processes. Essentially, they're adding the Chinese precursors, acid, and a variety of other chemicals they won't reveal to us to make a porridge-like mash that is then re-diluted and mixed again. They have no qualms about making this lethal cocktail.
America says that people like yourself are on a wanted list because so many people are dying in America because of fentanyl. Do you care about that?
Bueno, la verdad que nosotros nos mandan americanos ya cada quien lo usa como quiera, pues. Se muere más gente ya por las armas que hacen en Estados Unidos y eso ya se muere más gente a balazos que por esto.
Each part of the process concludes with a centrifuge removing the water as they get nearer to the end.
The most important people in this whole process are, of course, the men who make the fentanyl. They call themselves the cooks. And in fact, they actually pay others to teach them how to do it. It's very much like a professional chef. They don't do it just by time. They do it by how it looks, what it feels like, if you like. And that's how they know when it's each process, and there's 3 processes, that's when they know that it's done. Of course, at the end of the 3rd process, it's pure fentanyl.
There is a constant mixing, stirring and drying of the product in and out of sheets and bags before they're finally happy and indicate they are done. They never take off their gloves, respirators or aprons. The pure fentanyl is emptied into a bowl. They break it into pieces and move it into the sun to start drying. At another location, the now dry fentanyl is ground into powder in a smoothie maker. The drug is carefully weighed to a single kilo and loaded into a plastic bag and then completely wrapped in thick tape. This consignment will join another batch of kilo bags and is destined for the United States. It's placed in a secret locked compartment the cartel has installed in a pickup. The journey north now begins. Its destination, Tijuana, on the United States border. Once here, the drug is swapped into a car with American number plates and joins the traffic that constantly crosses between the 2 countries. The cartel accepts some consignments will be intercepted, but not every car can be searched. Dealers in the United States will start cutting the fentanyl. 1 kilo can quickly become 10 kilos and the profits multiply. If the demand is there, this deadly trade seems unstoppable.
And Stuart is in Tijuana for us tonight. Stuart, good to have you with us. Are the drug cartels winning this war?
Well, they certainly don't seem to be able to be stopped. I think what you have to always remember with the cartels, they're extremely sophisticated organisations. They've got a lot of employees here and a lot of people abroad, and they have close contacts with other crime gangs, so they really are all over the world. And I think one of the problems for the authorities really is that even if they arrest some of the bosses, they're just replaced, and then the business goes on. So it is very, very difficult to stop.
You're in Tijuana for us tonight. Just tell us, why is that city so central to this story?
It's quite simple, really. It's because it's right next door to the United States. There's a huge amount of traffic that passes between the countries on a daily basis. So if you like, it's a sort of massive distribution hub for the cartels. The problem for the city is that as a result of this, there are 3 cartels effectively fighting each other for control of the streets. As a result, it's one of the most dangerous cities in the world. There's about 2,000 murders every year here. That equates, on average, to 6 a day. It's quite remarkable. Just a quick warning, this report contains flashing images.
It never stops in Tijuana. A Red Cross ambulance is called to a shooting in one of the most gang-infested areas of the city. We scream through the streets. Ahead of us, a crime scene. National Guard and police are already trying to take control of the area. Zulma Cruz grabs her gear. She is a paramedic who is used to the menacing presence of the security forces and the stares of locals, many of whom identify with or are part of the cartel. She joins colleagues already treating a man shot in the head. Another attempted gangland execution. 3 cartels are vying for control of Tijuana. It's the gateway for drug and people smuggling to the USA. The trade in the opioid drug fentanyl is fueling an illegal drug epidemic in the US and a street war inside Mexico.
There's been an upsurge in deaths, gang members being identified and shot. This man here, he's very serious. He's stable, but he is critical. Fentanyl, many believe, is right at the heart of all of this. It's a growing business. And as a result of it, the fighting between the gangs is getting more and more vicious. Another call, this time a fentanyl overdose. A fast drive through the city. The Red Cross carry the antidote to fentanyl poisoning, one of the most toxic drugs in the world. It's called Narcan, and it can save the lives of those who are almost dead. The fire brigade are giving first aid as paramedic Alan Leon administers the Narcan. Time is critical. They want to see if they've caught the victim in time. Watch this. It is incredible. The drug has just been given to Juan through a drip. He's talking, he's shocked he's alive. His family hug him as he recovers. He's a lucky man. Fentanyl use, fentanyl trafficking, gang wars, death and murder. The ambulance crews see it all every day. This is gang violence. Is a lot of it linked to the fentanyl business, do you think?
Definitivamente sí. Definitivamente sí considero que puede estar ligado a todo eso, pues de las drogas, de los cárteles y pelea por, no sé, la venta en tales áreas y a lo mejor alguien se sale de su zona y sí tiene mucho que ver. O deudas por lo mismo de la venta de drogas.
Tijuana's red light district is the most public location for the cartel wars and the use and sale of fentanyl on the streets. It's constantly patrolled by police and National Guard, but they aren't beating the criminal activity here. The gangs make a fortune from drugs and the sex industry 24 hours a day. It's why they fight so hard to hold or take territory. The police say the cartels are only interested in making money. They don't care what fentanyl does to people.
Sí saben lo que están produciendo, ¿no? Lo que ellos fabrican, sí lo saben, lo conocen, saben la problemática que es vender la droga, saben que la gente pues cada vez está siendo más consumidora en el país, pero sí conocen la problemática, pero no les interesa. Ellos ven por sus propios intereses.
If this district is ground zero for the fentanyl trade in Mexico, then this city is the launch pad for the export of fentanyl to America, but also to the rest of the world. Stuart Ramsey, Sky News, Tijuana.
Well, from Tijuana, the drug flows across the border into the United States, which is now in the grip of a fentanyl crisis. Now, the drug is 50 times stronger than heroin, 100 times stronger than morphine. The most recent figures show synthetic opioids, including fentanyl, killed more than 70,000 Americans in 2021, accounting for the majority of overdose deaths in the US. Now, in the same year, fentanyl was the leading killer of Americans aged 18 to 49. Well, our correspondent Martha Kellner is in San Francisco's Tenderloin district, an area that the drug has already taken a hold of. So, Martha, just talk to us about the human cost of this fentanyl crisis.
Yeah, it is stark here. I am, as you mentioned, in San Francisco's Tenderloin district, which is the heart of the city's downtown. I'm a couple of streets away from the tech industry, which has made San Francisco its home. United Nations Plaza is around the corner. It is an incredibly wealthy city, yet this is the picture here. It is very, very stark. Brazen open-air drug use here. I've seen people taking drugs in front of tourists walking past, even in front of police. And fentanyl overdose deaths are on the rise here. 200 people in the past 3 months have lost their lives in San Francisco to fentanyl. But speaking to people, you get a sense of the horror of that beyond the statistics. Many of the people, most of the people, in fact, that I've spoken to have lost friends recently to fentanyl, some in front of their very eyes. I've been struck, though, by just how much people want to tell their story. They want America, they want the world to know about the horror of fentanyl addiction. And being in this city, you just get a sense of how much they're disturbed by how this drug has taken a hold of this place.
It's a normal afternoon on the doorstep of San Francisco's main government building, a snapshot of America's fentanyl crisis. It doesn't just look stark. An average of one person every 10 hours dies in this city of a fentanyl overdose. It's often here in the drug-ravaged Tenderloin district.
Are you a fentanyl user?
Absolutely. I've been an opiate addict for probably 10 years.
Trevor used to inject heroin, but fentanyl, he says, is a different beast, and he wants everyone to know.
I mean, the fact that this isn't a main issue, I mean, on TV every night is insane to us. I've never seen anything like it. I'll meet regular people, square Joes, on their way to work, and they'll stop, hang out with me, try this drug for the first time, and then leave their life. Literally, not leave. From that moment on, they're just out here with us.
Is that what fentanyl does?
To some people, it's insane. I've never seen anything like it. No one has.
What's it doing to the streets?
Man, I mean, it's turning everybody into, you know, a crazy, violent drug addict.
We're doing an interview. I know, but do that somewhere else. Y'all smoking crack right here, and there's a daycare right there.
We're interrupted by private security, asking them to move out of the view of a nursery. This is a city divided on how to deal with the scourge of drugs. Some want the streets swept. Others prefer a more compassionate, health-based approach.
No one wants to end up with a manslaughter charge because someone dies from their product.
Jeff is a former drug dealer and says testing is the answer.
2 stripes would be a negative result. One stripe would be a positive result. Yep. So there's that second line showing up right now.
Simple strip tests are now being used by dealers and users to check for fentanyl. It sometimes contaminates other drug supplies like cocaine.
I know you work with one of the largest Mexican street gangs, helping test their cocaine to make sure it doesn't have fentanyl in it or traces of fentanyl in it. How does that work?
If customers start to notice that people are dying from a batch of cocaine and that the autopsy results are showing that it's because of an opioid overdose, no one's buying that cocaine anymore. I mean, it just doesn't make financial sense to kill your customer base.
Across town, beside a homeless encampment, a charity has set up. They hand out clean syringes and overdose reversal treatments. How has fentanyl transformed your home?
People are dying. A lot more people are dying. And it's in a lot of the drug supply, and people are doing it without knowing they're doing it. And it's made substance use horrifyingly deadly.
It's difficult to believe at times that this is one of America's great historic cities, home to more billionaires than anywhere on earth. This is 2 streets from the headquarters of Twitter, but it's an open-air drug market. It is a tragedy with no easy resolution.
It's important to note as well that the city's minority population here has been particularly hard hit. A third of those 200 people in the past 3 months who have died in San Francisco of fentanyl overdoses were black, despite them making up just 5% of the city's population. And some may look at San Francisco and wonder why a city which is so rich cannot get a grip on this incredibly destructive problem. And it's a complicated picture, and the city is divided on how to deal with it. As I was mentioning there, some people prefer a more compassionate, health-based approach. Others want tougher, more aggressive policing. And on that note, the California Governor Gavin Newsom, he has drafted in the National Guard to come and try and clean up this area, although wandering around here over the past 2 days, I've not actually seen any of the National Guard on the streets. A harm reduction centre which opened not far from here, which offered clean syringes and a safe place for people to take drugs. That was shut down in December after community opposition. Other things that people are trying, which you saw there in my report, strict testing of drugs to make sure that other drugs are not contaminated by fentanyl. Just a tiny, tiny speck of fentanyl is enough to kill. They also have those Narcan supplies, which you saw in Stewart's report, which offer an immediate reversal to overdoses, an incredible intervention treatment. Narcan, many people here are carrying in the back of their bags to help their friends, should their friends have an overdose. So people are trying to find solutions, but quite frankly, nothing is stopping the huge supply of fentanyl which is reaching San Francisco and having such a corrosive, devastating effect here.
Okay, Martha, for now, thank you. And now, the impact on American communities. Our US correspondent, Mark Stone, is in Texas for us. Mark.
Kamali, we were in Philadelphia back in February, where we saw such similar scenes to that you've just seen in Martha Kellner's report. Fentanyl, sometimes cut with things even more deadly that are now emerging, is in cities right across this country. But we had heard that it was well beyond that. It was in small towns like this, a beautiful small town in southern Texas, not the place you would expect to find such a deadly drug. But it is here, it is in schools, it is in homes, and it is devastating societies like this. We'd arranged to meet Stephanie and her family at a park in Austin. Then she said she'd bring some others too, because fentanyl has broken so many here.
We lost our son, Tucker Rowe.
My granddaughter, Victoria Joanne.
I lost my son, Stephen James.
On February 17th of this year. He was 16 years old.
17 years old.
Make no assumptions about this drug. There is no typical victim. It is a poison, and it is killing young Americans up and down this country.
And she took maybe what she thought was a Xanax.
To a pill she was trying to use to relieve her anxiety and sleep.
That was unfortunately laced with fentanyl.
We found her the next day.
We were, 20 feet down the hall, asleep while she passed away, and we had no idea.
You can take your pick of devastated communities here. Just to the south of Austin is the town of Kyle, and we're out with the local police chief.
This started less than 18 months ago, and when it did start, it came with a vengeance, and it struck multiple families just in a matter of months, sometimes a matter of weeks.
We're a couple of hours here from America's southern border.
What is in Mexico now, in a few short hours, can be in the hands of our residents here in this part of the state.
In schools like that?
In schools like that.
Last week, a child overdosed in this classroom. It is tragically telling that they knew what to do.
So when we get called to a classroom. Usually you can tell there's a sense of urgency over our radios when we're listening. So when we get there, we look at the students. Sometimes they're blue. They're not responsive by any means. They have the death snore. It's really scary to hear. We just give the Narcan as quick as possible, get them on the ground and make sure there's a pulse. If not, we have to initiate CPR. Sometimes, or if there is a pulse, we can kind of resuscitate them back with rescue breathing.
Goodness. And is that student okay?
As far as I know, yes.
The young girl survived thanks to this, a reversal treatment, Narcan. They keep it on hand. But often it's not enough. In this school district, they have lost 5 students since last summer. Children.
It could be anybody close to you, it could be anybody around you, and it just hurts knowing that it could be you.
You know, COVID and the depression, the anxiety that children faced and that people are still living with today, and that combined with this relatively easy to get and lethal drug is really what's causing it to be so hard on our community.
Jerry Scrocky is the school district security director.
I think we're being successful on that first-time user. I think that they're getting the message, and I think that parents and those kids are heeding us. Where I think we are not reaching is those kids who already are addicted. And I think that goes back hand in hand to the lack of resources.
And the lack of mental health treatment.
Absolutely.
But you can feel the heaviness here, a burden beyond anything they should face.
Nobody wants to be working an overdose on anyone, but let alone a child. And it happening in the middle of a school day. It's just, sorry, it's rough.
Yeah, it really is.
This stuff is a game changer because you're dealing with sometimes 14, 15, 16-year-old kids that are dying from just one blue pill.
Sergeant Tommy Villanueva leads the drug busts in the community. He doesn't want to be identified, but he can reveal what they've seized.
These are the pills that the kids are taking?
Those are the most popular ones that we're seeing, yes.
Sometimes they're cutting them in half or a quarter, or just taking a sliver?
Correct.
Do you feel, Tommy, that this is a battle you're winning? Are you getting on top of this, or are you up against it?
No, sir, we're up against it. We're not winning it at all. We're managing what we do have and what we do find and the information we do get. But no, we're not winning. This is just a small fraction of what is here, what we've seen, what we've seized.
Back in Austin, in the park, dusk, and they were still telling us their stories.
But it's the drug. The drug is so addictive and it's so powerful and it steals lives. And that's what it did to our son.
He was a great big brother, and he was just always there.
They are bound by grief and a drug that's killing Americans in record numbers.
We're going to continue to fight and honor his name. He will not be just another statistic, not as long as I'm living.
And I am afraid to tell you that we've just had a tragic update from the school that you saw in that report there. They have confirmed that another child, a 15-year-old girl, has died from an overdose. A young girl who would have thought that she was taking a painkiller or a sleeping pill or was just experimenting like kids do, and she died.
Mark, for now, thank you. I'm pleased to say we're now joined by Dr. Rahul Gupta, who is Director of the Office for National Drug Control Policy, is responsible for coordinating drug policy in the United States. So, Dr. Gupta, thank you very much for your time and thank you for being with us this evening. 70,000 deaths a year, the biggest killer of people aged 18 to 49, children dying, kids dying daily, as Mark just told us. Why is the US government failing to protect its citizens and its children from fentanyl?
Well, let's first talk about why this is happening. It's happening because we lack a continuous treatment infrastructure for addiction. It's happening because the traffickers are continuing to profit out of, in a dispassionate way, out of vulnerable Americans. And this is exactly from day one, President Biden has been focused on. And what we are trying to do is build an addiction treatment infrastructure while going after the trafficking and the profits. And we're making some of the most historic progress as you talk about harm reduction, expanding treatment, and then making sure that we're going after the bad guys to hold them accountable.
I mean, but all of that is going to do nothing for the parents of that 15-year-old in Kyle, Texas, who's just died from an overdose because of this stuff.
That's exactly right. And, you know, I have children. I'm a parent. I'm also a physician, somebody who has himself attended funerals of people and sobbed. Part of the reason is that we don't want this to happen. We want to make sure that my own high school, now I'm seeing overdoses in the Washington area. It is important that we meet where young people are, make sure that they are aware of the dangers of getting pills that are not from a pharmacy or from a doctor, and make sure that they're carrying naloxone or Narcan. And that's exactly what we're doing when we put out a social media campaign from the White House with Ad Council to make young people aware of these dangers. The fact is today that ordering a pill online, whether it's Adderall or Xanax or anything, the counterfeit nature of it is more dangerous than playing Russian roulette with your life. And we want to make sure that every young person across America is aware of that.
Yeah, it's important that message gets out. Some $46 billion has been assigned to try and fight this issue. How much of that is going towards stopping it coming across the border, and how much of that is going into that treatment prevention infrastructure you talked about?
Yeah, that's a good question. We have about 57% of this is going towards treatment, and rest is going towards addressing the supply side. And what we're trying to do is two things. First, making sure we have a plan. What we do now, we're seeing about 8 months of flattening or decrease in these historic numbers. Yet we're not there. We have a long way to go. Secondly, we're trying to make sure that the world community knows that this is the synthetic issue is a global threat. There's three types of countries in this world right now, today, unfortunately. One, those who have a synthetic drugs like fentanyl problem and know about it, like United States. Others who have a problem don't yet know about it. And the third category is those who are going to have this problem in the future of synthetic drugs. This has really become a global menace. And it's really important for the United States, as we are doing, to lead on this effort because the trafficking is becoming more internationalized as well.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you touched on that, Dr. Gupta. Where does the UK fall in those categories, do you think? Have we got a synthetic drug problem now and we don't know about it, or is it coming?
Well, first of all, we know that, I've met with my colleagues and counterparts in the UK. There's obviously opioids problem like heroin and others, but will not be a surprise that it also falls victim to a synthetic problem. And that is why, my counterparts in the UK are very active in supporting, working with the United States, as are many other countries across the globe, to move forward to make sure that we are taking proactive steps, not only reactive, but proactive steps to both have surveillance, monitoring, but also then denying the profits that these trafficking organizations survive on, both operating capital and profits. We deny them those in order to beat this particular crisis.
OK, Dr. Rahul Gupta, do appreciate your time and expertise. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you.
Now, from drug factories in the mountains of northwest Mexico to the classrooms of Texas, our special Sky News reports has revealed the scale of the fight against fentanyl. The drug is killing thousands of Americans, but as our reporting shows, as long as there is demand, cartels will continue to manufacture and distribute it. And the Cartel in Stewart's report told Sky News they're already selling to dealers in the UK. The question for authorities here, can they be stopped? And while efforts to crack down on the drug's availability go on, its victims keep dying. We'll end tonight with the voices of just some of the people caught up in America's fentanyl crisis.
Never seen anything like it. I'll meet regular people, square Joes, on their way to work, and they'll stop, hang out with me, try this drug for the first time, and then leave their life. Literally, not leave. From that moment on, they're just out here with us. It's turning everybody into, a crazy, violent drug addict.
People are dying. A lot more people are dying. And it's in a lot of the drug supply, and people are doing it without knowing they're doing it. And it's made substance use horrifyingly deadly.
We lost our son, Tucker Rowe.
My granddaughter, Victoria Joanne.
My son, Stephen James.
She was 16 years old.
We found her the next day.
We were, 20 feet down the hall asleep while she passed away.
The drug is so addictive and it steals lives.